Okay, good evening and welcome to the Southbridge Town Council meeting Monday, December 7th, 2020 at 7 p.m. This meeting is being conducted via remote participation. Calling this meeting to order pursuant to Governor Baker's March 12, 2020 order suspended certain provisions of the Open Meeting Law, General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 18, and the Governor's March 15, 2020 order imposing strict limitations on the number of people that may gather in one place. This meeting of the Town Council is being conducted via remote participation only. No in-person attendance of members of the public will be permitted, but every effort will be made to ensure that the public can adequately access the proceedings as provided for in this order. A reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192.
This conference is no longer being recorded.
Oops, I think I hit that. Sorry about that.
This conference will now be recorded.
Again, a reminder that persons who would like to view this meeting while in progress may do so by watching Southbridge Cable Access Channel 192 or by the remote information noted below. We will post a record of this meeting on the town's website at www.ci.southbridge.ma.us as soon as we are able. A roll call vote is required for all votes taken of this order. All right, I'm trying to get to my share screen. I'm using a different laptop. I apologize. Okay. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Counselor Adams,
Present.
Counselor Catrona,
Present.
Counselor Daniel,
Present.
Counselor Dow,
Present.
Counselor Jovan,
Present.
Counselor Lazo,
Excused.
Counselor Marquetti,
Present.
Counselor Ryan,
Present.
and Counselor Steves.
Present.
We do have a quorum. Item 3A, consider and accept the Town Council meeting minutes of Monday, November 2nd, 2020. Do I have a motion?
So moved. Second.
Okay, I have a motion by Councilor Adams, seconded by Councilor Steves. Councilor Adams, do you have a correction?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. On page 5, agenda item number 14, at the very bottom where it's bold, vote by roll call, it says opposed by Daniel Adams, but there's 3 no votes on that. I believe, yeah, based on these numbers.
Yeah, I caught that too. It should be 5-2 too.
Okay.
All right, and
522.
also, was it 522? Okay. I also want to note that Councilor Steves had brought up the fact that the liquor board, I believe he read off about their responsibility to set the fees.
From state law. Yeah, I did. You're right.
Right, and that we would address this later on as a council. That's all I have at this point.
Okay, thank you. Any other errors, corrections, or omissions? Any other? Seeing none, roll call is amended.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
and Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Okay, motion carries as amended. Item 3B, considering accept the town council meeting minutes of Monday, November 16th, 2020. Do I have a
So
motion?
moved.
Second.
Motion by Counselor Adams, seconded by Counselor Steves. Any errors, corrections, or omissions on that? Counselor Adams.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. Page number 7, agenda item number 26. I believe it's the, not line 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th line down where it says Town Manager McCall said they can't discuss this in executive session, but they can just take it publicly. I think that's reversed. Shouldn't it be a can
Right.
discuss it in executive, but can't do it publicly, correct?
No, I believe, Mr. Town Manager, right? We said we could not discuss it in an executive session, right? On those things, those items. It would not be an executive session material, correct? That's what we had a conversation about. Because it doesn't fit, it does not fit under the exemptions for executive session. So anything would have to be public. That was the conversation, if I recall.
Okay, and then my mistake, because I know, go ahead, Mr. Town Manager, sorry.
Mr. Town Manager?
My mic was off. You're talking about the various contracts that we wanted to go into executive session. And that was for the CDBG micro enterprise. Again, we couldn't find an exception to do it. So that's why within the provided exceptions for the Attorney General's office. So the only way you'd have to do it is in public session, and we determined based on a ruling that we shouldn't be disclosing that type of information. So
Okay, so basically nobody should be, okay, so we shouldn't be discussing this at all, as far as individual names and stuff like that.
well, sometimes the Attorney General that's included in Ms. Dean's presentation that alluded to that. And then, there was a couple things we've looked at recently that there weren't exceptions within the executive meeting rules to allow us to discuss it, and that was one of them. The others were some of the other contracts that we wanted to have an executive session. So there was two different items recently that we discussed.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Any other errors, corrections, or omissions? Counselor Steves?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Two quick items. One is item number 6. It says chairman's is misspelled. And the other one is under item number 8, Dr. Villar's presentation. I remember it doesn't note that there were also several people asked questions of Dr. Villar as well. And I don't remember exactly what they were, but there were several of them.
Okay. Anything else?
No.
All right. Any further errors, corrections, or omissions? None. All those roll call those as amended.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
and Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Thank you. Subcommittee reports. General Government Council Steves.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We have not met recently, although I'll probably end up having a meeting next week, but not currently scheduled.
Thank you. Department of Public Works, Councilor Marquetti.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. There are several agendas on tonight that were voted on at the DPW subcommittee. On December 2nd, we discussed the bid results and voted to award a contract for technical support at the water plant. That'll be agenda item number 11. We discussed engineering service proposal for Hatchet Pond Dam and voted to award a contract. That will be agenda 12. On December 23rd, we discussed and reviewed transfer to allow payment of a late bill from Veola at the wastewater treatment plant. That was voted to recommend to council for further action. That's agenda 13. Also on November 23rd, we discussed bid results for the repair of Hatchet Pond and awarded a contract. That will be agenda 14 for further action. And we discussed a change order number 5 on the amount of $300, minus $300, negative $300 from Lavangi Electric. And that was voted to recommend to council for further action, agenda 15. And I don't have any meetings scheduled at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Education and Human Services, Counselor Catrona.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. A meeting was held on Wednesday, December 2nd at 6:30. We're held remote. On tonight's agenda is number 10, where we sent to council James Dyer for a citizen member of EHS. We also had discussion from the Southbridge Public School System. That'll be on our agenda December 14th. And we had discussion of sanitary inspector for the Board of Health. I have no meeting scheduled at this time. Thank you.
Thank you, Counselor. Plan and Development, Counselor Adams.
Hey, Mr. Chair, we did not have a meeting since our last town council meeting, and we have one scheduled for tomorrow evening at 6 p.m. remote. Thank you.
Thank you. Protection of Persons and Property. Councilor Lazo's not here this evening. I don't believe he has a meeting scheduled. There are a couple items on the agenda tonight relative to a state 911 grant. I had reviewed those with Councilor Lazo, and he stated that it had been all right to go up to directly to council because of the time-sensitive nature of those grants. Special committee reports, the COVID-19 public health and safety briefing. I do not see Andy on the call here. I don't believe, unless I don't see his. Hold on, let me check the list of people here. Yeah, I do not see him called in. So I'll do my best, and I'm sure the town manager and Council Adams can fill in on some of the information that we have. And this is for the councilors as well as the public out there. Just an update on the Emergency Operations Center. As all the councils are aware and the public is aware, on March 20th of 2020, the town of Southbridge did a declaration of a state of emergency relative to the COVID-19 situation. At that time, we instituted an Emergency Operations Center that was pretty much in operation from March, I think, until maybe June, at which time, due to the numbers and the state that we're in at that time, we went into a limited participation in the center itself. In the early fall of this year, when the numbers started to spike, we instituted the Emergency Operations Center, going on a partial opening, meeting relatively every 2 to 3 weeks. Just for the public out there, the participants that are in this Emergency Operations Center are myself as the Chief Government Officer, coordinating the meeting itself, the town manager, the police and fire chiefs who serve as the incident commanders, the director of inspections, the school department, Department of Public Works, finance individuals, the 2 deputy chiefs of the police and fire department, as well as TJ Edwards, who serves as an emergency management liaison. It's being operated under incident command structure. We've also had the involvement of Harrington Memorial Hospital. I believe that the Emergency Operations Center has been valuable in making sure that the town is prepared to handle this pandemic. And we've done a great job in mitigating many of the issues in town. I want to thank all those participants in the meeting, including Councilor Adams, who serves as our Public Information Officer, who, if people go to the website, will see that the page is back up for the COVID-19 information. I'd like to thank the school department, because the school department has been a very gracious partner with us in providing resources so that we can have the materials translated. That site for the public, please go to the town's website for that page. It's on the lead banner in red. That'll give you information as to what is going on in town, and will direct you to valuable information of updates from all departments, the school, Board of Health, and other agencies. Status of cases in Massachusetts, it was brought to our attention. We've been watching these numbers quite regularly, and I'd like to thank the Director of Inspections for keeping the council informed. I know several councilors do put out the same information on their own Facebook pages as to what the numbers are looking like. Unfortunately, the town of Southbridge, while we're in a very good place from between March and June of this year, We had a total during that period of time of a total of 152 confirmed cases during a 3-month period of time. Unfortunately, the pandemic and the situation has worsened in our community. And currently, this week alone, we had 132 total positive cases in the town of Southbridge. So we have seen that second surge much worse than the first surge in the town of Southbridge. Currently, we have an 11% positivity rate of those that are tested. And we are working to make sure that we get out as much information as possible. Again, we will have public information sessions, which Council Adams and other partners with the police chief do Facebook Live. And that we'd also like to thank the cable access, because cable comes out and records those meetings and pushing out as much information. The town's website is the information, the official information for the town of Southbridge. Given all that is confirmed and the spike that we have had, I'll leave it to the town manager during his announcements to discuss what's happening with the town hall and the town hall operations. I'm sure many of you have noticed that there was a message put out today. So with that, we're also working with the police and fire chiefs through their leadership. We're working on a plan for a dispensing site if once the vaccine becomes available. So there'll be more information. So watch out for our Facebook Live, our social media campaign, as we work to develop a site here in Southbridge for any dispensing of possible vaccines. With that, I yield to Council Adams if he has anything else he wants to add, or the town manager on this COVID-19 briefing. Council Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to add in that you noticed this evening, obviously the red banner has the closing of the town hall, but I'm sure that banner will get back up to speed with the public information page. But we're putting out that weekly, usually on Friday afternoons. We do our best we can to get it out by Friday afternoons. I will say that as of the meeting today, working closely with Harrington Hospital, with the dispensing site and some information flow. And I believe the town manager and I will be discussing further some more information about the town hall and some of the other buildings within the community. So but that's all I have. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I also wanted to comment, after our EOC meeting, we did have an additional meeting with EDS, and we did have a lot of discussion about how we would put in place the distribution of the vaccine as that becomes available, and that we are partnering. We reached out last week. I spoke with representatives from Walgreens so that they're on board. We have a primary and secondary site. We'll probably be looking primarily at the Armory as a site based on some new information about how the vaccine has to be administered. Today was an unusual day at Town Hall. As many of you know, last week we did have our first confirmed, well, I should say our second confirmed case at Town Hall. One of the earlier ones happened while the individual was away. Last one was someone who had been in Town Hall, albeit for a brief period of time, but we worked through that. Today, however, we had yet another employee who notified me this morning before work hours that they were getting tested, and that test came back positive. Andy Pelletier, head of inspectional services, and I immediately started talking about this particular issue. I'd also had a conversation with Councilor Daniel as well as Chairman Jovan last week, and Andy and I have been talking about the situation ever since we had our third week in a row at the red level, the high risk community status. As you know from my email last week, we were notified by the Executive Office of Health and Human Services that because of our 3 weeks at a high risk, we had to roll back to phase 3, step 1 of the reopening plan. That coupled with the high positivity rate that we have, we are in the top 10. I believe we're number 8 in the state with regard to our positivity level. That started the discussion as to whether or not we were going to keep Town Hall open to the public for reciprocal safety of not only our employees, but our residents and our visitors. Today, when we learned that we had a second positive within 1 week, we made the decision to reassure our employees that we're being proactive. We closed the town hall at about noontime today, and we with Heather Blakely's assistance and most of the department heads, I will say, were helping out that I contacted without any issue whatsoever. We got a cleaning service to come in. They started at 5 o'clock doing a thorough cleaning. We had employees remove items from their desks. There was a fogger involved this evening. We've since notified all employees that they can return tomorrow to work. However, given the fact that we've been curbside with the library and other town facilities have not been open to the public, and the fact that some other town halls in the Commonwealth are starting to go back to a either mail, email, Dropbox and or appointment service, we decided at this time it'd be prudent for Southbridge to take that same route. So effective tomorrow morning, we will be working via phone, email. I've asked all employees to come in. We'll be performing our normal services in the town hall, but for control purposes, we will be determining who will be coming in the building. We had a conversation today during the EOC. Dr. Villar was there. The reason they said for their success and why the kids are still in school is they can control who's coming into that facility and ensuring everybody's wearing a mask. So the protocol, as it has been and will be going forward, that all employees will be wearing a mask at all times, maintaining social distancing. We will start to look at other options should we have additional instances of people testing positive, or we have people that have to quarantine. But for right now, we look to continue all town operations. However, we will be doing them via telephone, email, Dropbox, or in their special circumstances, people can call the town hall. We can make arrangements to have an appointment where you could pull up and we could either grab the documents such as birth certificates and trade them through the window. But that was, we decided that given all of those factors, it was necessary for us to ensure the safety of the residents that come into the building, as well as our employees and any other visitors or contractors. So that's the action we took this afternoon.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Any questions, comments? Council Marquetti?
I'd just like to thank the town manager for the daily updates, and also you could pass that along to Mr. Pelletier. I appreciate the daily updates, and so do the residents. Thank you.
And if the, thank you, Ms. Councilor Marquetti. I just received an email moments ago from Mr. Pelletier indicating that we have 24 confirmed cases today. I don't know if anybody else just saw that. We will be, as Councilor Adams indicated, I will be getting together with him so we can put out additional information. Before we left Town Hall today, we made sure that there were postings on the doors with telephone numbers. We put something on the website indicating that we're making this change. And tomorrow we'll make additional efforts to make sure that word gets out that we have gone to this mode, and we'll do our best to accommodate everybody that we can through the safest means possible.
Thank you. Councilor Steves?
Yeah, I'm not sure if anybody can answer this question, but do you have any idea why we have such a high positivity rate?
Well, I don't believe Mr. Pelletier is on the call, but it's the percentage of positives that we are getting for testing. I think, one of the issues we talked about is family spread. It's not so much in the general public. But I'm not a professional by any means. That's just my understanding talking with Mr. Pelletier. And I personally think that people are running into what I call COVID fatigue and a little bit of complacency. That coupled with the fact that I think people see hope on the horizon with the vaccine and they may be letting their guard down. And we're dealing with colder weather. People are staying indoors and it's the holiday season. So all those factors combined, I think we're just ripe for people to be passing it. And within those confines, you can be passing the virus for, is my understanding, up to 48 hours prior to being symptomatic. So, people could have shown up to these family gatherings or getting together for dinner or whatever with folks, and they may not feel any symptoms today. They pass it, and 2-3 days later, they're symptomatic and they test positive. And, those within my family and circle of family and friends, I'm sure it's the same with many others here. you're finding out about primary and secondary contacts happening on a regular basis with folks. So we all have to be vigilant. We all have to wear our masks when we're in public, especially when we're in closed spaces coming into the town hall, the employees. So we will continue to drive that message through town hall. And I encourage everybody in the community to continue to wear the mask and properly social distance.
Thank you. And again, I just want to, again, to everybody that's been involved in the Emergency Operations Center, thank you to everybody involved. And also, we have strived through the center and as community leaders to ensure that all our employees and citizens are safe. And that's what we're going to continue to do, whether it's in the school system. Really like to thank Dr. Villar for being transparent and the message that he put out that got shared. And what he's doing as partners with us. Again, to what the town manager said is everybody needs to be diligent and so that we can keep it mitigated as best we can. But thank you for a quick response to the town manager to address the situation today and the dialogue that he has with us and council. Councilor Steves?
Oh yeah, one more question. And I would agree with you. Thank you for your fast uptick in that. What I was curious about, you mentioned vaccines earlier. Do we have any access, or does DPH have access that we could get to some of the background data regarding the efficacy of these vaccines? We hear a lot of stuff on the radio and stuff about the numbers that Pfizer and Moderna and the other company whose name I'm forgetting at the moment are stating. But it would be nice to actually see the evidence and publish it and put it on the website if we can get it so everybody else knows, because I'm sure there are people out there who are concerned.
Yeah, I think that's something we'll refer over to Mr. Pelletier in that department. If we can get that information, we'll update it next week on Monday's meeting, and we'll have more information on that. Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just to try to answer Councilor Steve, or at least respond to Councilor Steve's request, I do want to state that I believe it's an independent group that's made that decision that it would be 5%, not per se the two companies that are in the mix right now. Thank you.
Thank you. And we'll have a further update next week at next week's meeting. We have a meeting next week. So whatever information we have and updates, we'll bring it forward then. Okay. Anything else on the COVID-19? Again, next week we should have. Go ahead. All right. And next week we should have the chief here, and we'll make sure Mr. Pelletier is here as well. The chief regrets for not being here tonight, but he is not. He's ill. So, town manager.
If I may, Mr. Chairman, I have just 2 or 3 other small announcements. Heather Blakely had asked me to just let everybody know that the compost bins at the DPW will be removed on Monday, December 14th for the season. Similarly, the entrance to the Westville flood control area off of South Street will be closing on the same date, December 14th for the season. And I was also provided a notice that there will be a drive-through job fair happening this Friday, December 11th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. in the parking lot of the Southbridge Hotel and Conference Center. It's being hosted by Massis Staffing Solutions. We were provided a copy of the flyer and asked to put it on the website. I opted to make the announcement here. If anybody needs any information, I'm more than happy to entertain phone calls at the town manager's office. But again, there's a drive-through job fair this Friday, December 11th, from 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. only at the Southbridge Hotel and Conference Center parking lot. It's my understanding at 14 Mechanic Street. And that's all I have at this time.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under the chairman's announcements, just a couple other few announcements. As you know, the council is doing this remote participation. We had talked about reevaluating it, given the uptick in our COVID numbers. We will continue to meet in this fashion, the remote fashion. Just a quick update. Cable is working on that hybrid approach. They did get some information on other towns that are doing that. So hopefully we'll be able to put a solution in to have at least the council meet in chambers and the ability to have the citizens remotely and any other parties remotely. So that is being worked on. So we will continue this at least through December until mid-January, and then see where we're at on that. I want to thank the Clements family, Denise Clements, and all the volunteers for their work on the holiday visions right after Thanksgiving. Given the situation that we're in, they did a great job in bringing some semblance of normalcy to the town. It was great to see the people on Main Street and throughout town as the parade went through. So really, thank you very much to all them, because it was a lot of hard work to put it out, and especially this year with all the challenges. Just want to also announce that the Southbridge Police Department will be participating in the 19th annual Goods for Guns buyback. Will be taking place Saturday, December 12th, 2020, from 9 a.m. to 2 p.m. Each person who brings in an operable firearm to the police station will receive a grocery gift card. $25 for a rifle, $50 for a pistol, and $75 for an automatic or semi-automatic firearm. And the message is, please help keep our community safe and consider participating. They will also have free gun locks available. If you plan on bringing a firearm in, please store it in an unloaded and plain plastic or paper bag. There'll be no names asked and no registration required, so you can do it anonymously. So we just want to announce that. Also, Cops and Kids toy drive is ongoing, and that will be ongoing. They're collecting toys. We mentioned it before. There's information on the Facebook page, but really, for again, situation that we're in, if you need assistance in toys for your kids, there's applications at the police department on their Facebook page. Still collecting toys at various locations, and also on this Saturday as well. It was postponed from last Saturday. The Sturbridge Police Department, who is partnering with us on this, is doing a drive-through toy drive, fill a cruiser event at the Sturbridge Police Station on December 12th from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. If you are looking for assistance, applications need to be submitted by next Wednesday, December 15th, to the police department. So contact them if you have any questions on that. And lastly, just as an update, Councilor Daniel and myself spoke with the town manager over the pavement management presentation that we've been talking about. I'm very excited to hear what the town manager has to provide to the council. Given everything that went on, he was going to try to have it available for this evening, but I told him to next week would be fine. He was eager to get it to us, and it took a lot of convincing from us to say that's okay. 1 week more isn't going to be anything manager. So we look forward to that presentation, unless the town manager has anything else. But from what he explained to us, I think, again, we talked about planning, and he'll have that to us for next week. So unless any other major issues came up this week, because it's every day, it's changing every day. So, Mr. Town Manager, did you have anything else under Town Manager's announcements, or were you all set?
No, I was all set with those other announcements that I made. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Under presentations, we were going to have a presentation to the Animal Control Officer this evening for receiving the Animal Control Officer of the Year Award. That will be moved to next week, again, because the chief is not available this evening. Citizens Forum. Is there anyone from the audience that wishes to address the town council? I see just pretty much everybody from council here. So, anyone? Anyone? Okay. Item 10, vote to confirm the appointment of James Dyer as a citizen member to the Education and Human Services Subcommittee, effective immediately through July 31st, 2021, or until a new member is appointed. His state ethics is in good standing. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
So moved.
Second.
I got a motion by Councilor Ryan, second by Councilor Catrona. Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. We had put forward the name of James Dyer for citizen member of Education Human Services. Vote was unanimous, 3-0. Looking at his interest form, and also a couple of councilors, yourself as well as Councilor Adams. Nothing but praise for this gentleman. I believe he would be a great asset to our committee. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Any other discussion? I'd like to thank Councilor Dyer for coming forward. I had approached him. He lives across the street from me. I've been trying to get him involved in a bunch of different committees and subcommittees, and finally got him to consent to this one. He is works over at Old Sturbridge Village, has a lot of background in education and in town. So I look forward to him joining us with that. Mr. Town Manager?
I just wanted to mention to the entire council, I mentioned the other night to the subcommittee, it had been a directive from the council that I make a point of interviewing a lot of the prospective candidates for boards and committees. And I did have a telephone interview with Mr. Dyer prior to the subcommittee hearing, and did determine that he had quite an interesting and appropriate background, and demonstrated the appropriate commitment to serving on the committee. So I know the council had asked me when I came on board to go out and interview these candidates. And so I just want to let you know that I've continued to do that, and will continue to do so going forward.
Thank you. Any other comments, questions? Roll call?
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
yes,
Counselor Ryan.
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Catrona.
Yes.
Okay. Mr. Town Manager, you had something else?
Yes, I forgot to mention, Counselor Steves asked last week at, I believe it was the DPW subcommittee meeting, about the National Grid Green Communities Initiative, the grant. I just want to let him know I'm waiting on a final report, but I did speak to the folks heading up those grants relative to the lighting, the LED lighting, and they are going to go back and try and do a 5-year. They already presented me some some spreadsheets, and they said they would reduce that down into a manageable format to show you what the savings has been in those the programs and when they started and ended. So I expect to get that any day now, and I will send that out to the council via email.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you. Item 11, vote to ratify the contract with Ty and Bond for the total amount of $28,800 from account number 610450-5830000-21583 technical support for operational procumbent water treatment system. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Councilor Adams, second by Councilor Steves. Councilor Marquetti.
thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. This was voted on the DPW subcommittee meeting of December 2nd, 2-1 favorable vote to send it to the council for further discussion and a vote.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Heather? DPW, please?
Yeah, I just have one technical correction before. It's actually procurement. It was a mistype.
Right. So it's operational procurement. Okay.
Yes.
Any other questions? Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, to the town manager, and this is in no way a slight at all, but we're spending $28,000 on a contract, and I also sat in on that subcommittee meeting. And I heard the DPW director gave an excellent explanation, as did the town manager, who openly stated that he doesn't have any experience with the water contract, but we're spending $28,000. I say it again, because we're looking at Ty and Bond. We must have a contract that we can at least take a look at from the past. We have a town manager now who came to us with 20+ years of experience, both legal, with at least a decade, if I recall, of legal experience, and just project leadership and so on and so forth. I can't believe that we can't review this contract ourselves, and why we have to send this out to Ty and Bond. I get it that they certainly know the water, they know the water contract, but we hear from the DPW director, and we've heard it several times, how wonderful of a job that they're doing down there, and everything's going so well. So again, I ask, why can't we at least review the current contract and try and work off of that instead of spending $28,000 of the taxpayers' money again, and to put this out to tie and bond? It just seems like we're taxing spending in this town much too much, and I'd like to see it brought back in-house. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
So thank you. I was under the impression I'll let Heather, DPW, the town manager, respond to this. This is not to tie and bond to evaluate the contract and negotiate a contract. This is for tie and bond to assist in the development of the scope for services to go out to bid for the operation of the water treatment facility. So it's for a scope of services and technical expertise in the management of operational, but I'll defer to DPW Blakely that it's not an evaluation of the contract, it's to help develop the scope of services for the management of the water treatment facility. Is that correct? Go ahead. Anna.
Yep. Yes, Jack, that is correct. It's to adapt the scope so that we can put it out to bid and have a level playing field for the people that do bid on it, to develop the standards to how they're going to be evaluated and what we're asking for. Yes, there's a draft of a contract that's going to be included of what we expect, but it has to do with how we look at their qualifications for the bidders that come in for the operations of the contract. It's important that we have a good system to evaluate whoever comes in for this contract. It's important to have technical ability to make sure that when we're reading all of the proposals that we know what we're asking the right questions. They're key in when we do interviews and helping draft the interview questions. They're key as just another voice, another technical mind in the room. I know Michael is very good at the legal part, and yes, I do have a very strong background in the water technical part, but this is a huge contract for the town that's upcoming. The 28,000 is a very small percentage of what this contract is going to be over the life of this contract. And I would hate for us to miss something that could cost us in the long run, much more than 28,000.
Mr. Town Manager, do you have anything else to add to that?
So I unfortunately, because we had to leave the town hall, I didn't bring everything with me. I do have that file with the older contract. And I believe this is something that comes up every 10 years. It's not a typical contract. But what generally happens when you go out to bid on one of these, as Ms. Blakely had indicated, there is a contract that's included as part of the RFP. And oftentimes the contract, we've been using one that was drafted by Merrick O'Connell for a lot of our projects. There's standard language that indemnifies the parties, protects the town, talks about terms. In some of these specialized agreements, what typically will happen is the scope of services in the RFP and all associated documents are incorporated by reference. So when you sit down and negotiate the contract, it's more about the terms of performance and who's protected, what your insurance obligations are, things of that nature. And then it just says, and you will do everything that's alluded to in the accompanying documents that are included by reference, including the scope of work, the RFP, and all bid documents. So if I sit down either alone or with counsel to work out the details of that contract for signing, I'm relying on the expertise of whoever put together the scope of services. And that's the part I alluded to last week. I have no background in water treatment, nor do I in wastewater treatment. And that is why in certain instances, we've gone out in not only this community, but in other communities I've worked at for a professional to develop those requirements, also to put in things that we should be looking for relative to people's expertise when we're doing the bidding so that we can determine which one of the applicants is best suited for the community, because you don't always want to go just on price. You want to go on their qualifications, expertise, and references. So that's just my input and my response for Councilor Catrona as to why I wouldn't be developing the scope of services. It's typically incorporated into the contract, just by a reference in most instances.
Council Marquetti?
Thank you. Unless Council Catrona wanted to follow up, I would yield to him if you wanted to follow up.
Council Catrona?
Thank you, Councilor Marquetti. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just through you. So to the town manager, I certainly respect your comments and your being forward with us. What I just struggle with right now is spending an additional $28,000 and hearing that we don't have the knowledge in this town to put together the scope of work with the current talent that we have in the town. And it's very disappointing to hear that we have to go out and spend money that right now this community just doesn't have. So it's disappointing to hear. Thank you. And I will be voting no.
Council Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. As I said before, a lot of residents have talked to me when I was running for town council and even recently that their water and sewer bills are very high, and they're asking that we do something to try and keep the cost down. And the only way I know of to try and keep costs down is to stop spending money. Now, I'm not sure that this is really necessary. I look at the scope of work here, and I wanted to thank the town manager for sending me the proposal that was sent out. It's almost identical. It's identical to the scope of work that Ty and Bond put together here. So it seems to me that Ms. Blakely knows what she's looking for, and I don't really think this is necessary. It's just my opinion. I was kind of like curious as to why only one company even put out a proposal on this, and that was Ty and Bond. No one else put out anything on it. It just made me kind of like curious as to why only one company did that. But when I looked at this proposal, I read through it, and they're looking at staffing, safety and security, communication and process control and all kinds of things at the water treatment plant. But I know that the DPW director has always said that Whitewater is doing an excellent job down there. And I even took a tour with her to the water department, and it looked to me like they were doing an excellent job. I thought that the water looked very clean coming out of there. I was very impressed. I even told my wife we could stop buying bottled water because the water in Southbridge is very good. And so I just don't understand the necessity for this, especially when residents are struggling to pay their water bills. They want us to try and cut the spending as much as we can. I think the DPW director and with the town manager can more than handle this. Bidding services, we've put out bids in this town for years. Don't think we need anybody to tell us how to put out bids. But the other problem I have is Ty and Bond. As I said before, I was not satisfied with Ty and Bond and their service at the landfill. They made some comments during the whole water contamination issue that I was not really pleased with, and I felt it put the town at some very serious risks. And so that's the other reason I'm just not happy with Ty and Bond. You want to put this back out? I shouldn't even say that because I just don't think we need to spend the money on this, but I'm definitely not happy with Ty and Bond. I think we should cut ties with Ty and Bond and just do this in-house. So I would agree with Councilor Catrona. I don't think this is necessary, and I'm not going to vote for it. Thank you. That's all I have to say.
So, any other councilors have questions at this time? So, to the DPW director. We are required to go out to bid because the contract is completed. So even though we're satisfied with Whitewater's performance, which we are, they get awards for their water quality and the town's water quality. We cannot continue to use Whitewater, because we have to go out to bid. Is that correct?
That is correct. Under procurement laws, you can only extend the contract so many times. We're already bumping up against that. I mean, there's some leeway there for purposes of going back out to bid and things like that we are doing, that we have extended it, but we have to be making an effort to go ahead and make sure we have a fair procurement process, which is part of what we're doing with the drafting of the scope so that we evaluate correctly and we do all those things correctly. I appreciate all the confidence that Mr. Marquetti and Mr. Catrona, put on both me and Mr. McCall. And I wouldn't say that this is something that we totally couldn't do, but we're both strapped with all these things that we're already working on. And for us to take this on would totally impact. It's a lot of work to pull all the documents together. It's a lot of work to do all the proper things. The current contract has multiple amendments to it. It has multiple things that would need to be incorporated. It won't happen in the time frame to get it out to bid. It can't happen before the end of the year if that's what we're trying to do. At some point, there's just too many other things going on. And that's really where it comes down to. I understand Mr. Marquetti's concerns regarding the landfill. I can tell you that since I've been working with Ty and Bond, I'm not working with the same folks, and that's to be known. But they've always been professional. They've been very upfront with us. They've been very successful in the water main project that we've extended. They were very successful in their help with the wastewater treatment plant. So I think by doing this, we get probably a better, more competitive bid, which is going to save the taxpayers money in the long run, because the contract that we're going out for is a $1 million contract every year. And that's where you're going to save money, is if you can get the most competitive bids under that for that contract, long-term over the next 10 years.
Thank you. Any other questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
No.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
and Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Motion carries 6-2 with Councilors Marquetti and Councilors Catrona in opposition. Agenda item 12. This is the vote to ratify the contract. The town DPW director had contacted me earlier today stating that we need to postpone this to the next meeting because this contract may not be necessary. Is that still the case, Heather?
Yes, that's true. Thank you.
If you want to just update the council as to why it might not be necessary, then I'll entertain a
Sure.
motion to postpone to next week.
Sure. After the meeting on December 2nd, I did some follow-up work. At the meeting, I said that we had just recently done EAPs, emergency action plans, for our other dams. In following up on that emergency action plan, we determined that Hatchet was included in that emergency action plan. That was done by a different engineering company than Fuss and O'Neill. And I think when all the plans and the permits got submitted to the Office of Dam Safety, they just got that crossed that they thought they didn't have one yet. So when Fuss and O'Neill contacted us, we had to cross those T's, dot those I's. But we are checking with Office of Dam Safety that the EAP that we have submitted is sufficient for Hatchet, and therefore we won't need the $5,000 for Fuss and O'Neill. There are some other permanent conditions that we are still working through with Fuss and O'Neill. I do expect another proposal for them on some meetings that are required by the engineer that's stamping the plans with Office of Dam Safety. These are things that until you get your permit, you're not going to know, but we are working through those. We're waiting on a proposal from them on that. But for now, until we determine, which I hopefully will hear this week, as long as Office of Dam Safety is happy with our EAP that we already submitted, we don't need this $5,000.
So I'll entertain a motion to postpone till December 14th for further action.
So
So
moved.
moved.
Motion by Councilor Adams, second by Councilor Steves. Roll call.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
and Counselor Dow.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 13, vote to approve the transfer request from account number 600-400-574-100, insurance property liability auto, to account number 600-440-570-600, other charges and expenses prior year, in the amount of $5,398.16, to allow for payment of a Viola bill, which Viola did not provide to the town. Is there a motion?
So moved.
second,
Motion and a second by Councilor Adams and second by Councilor Ryan. This went to, is this DPW as well? DPW?
That's correct. Thank you. Through you, Mr. Chairman. This was voted 3-0 to send to the council for further action at the November 23rd meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions, comments? Any information needed from DPW director? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
yes,
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
and Counselor Jovan.
Yes. Motion carries. Agenda 14, vote to award the contract for Hatchet Pond Dam repairs to Northern Tree Services LLC in the amount of $66,285 to be funded from project number 64560, Hatchet Pond Dam repairs. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Motion by Council Adams, seconded by Council Daniel. Council Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, this was voted 3-0 to send to the full council for action at the November 23rd, 2020 meeting. If possible, if the DPW director, one thing that I never really looked into more thoroughly is what is wrong with Hatchet Pond that it needs to be. I'm sure it's an emergency, it needs to be done, but maybe you could just explain it. Thank you.
Sure. During an inspection, so Hatchet Pond, for those of you who might not, I'm sure most of you probably aren't familiar with it because I'm sure most of you haven't been up to where it is. It is our furthest reservoir. It is actually the reservoir itself is in Connecticut. It's part of the watershed that we have that's in Connecticut. The dam itself is in Massachusetts. And this has caused some confusion throughout the years of who actually has oversight of this dam. So Connecticut didn't want anything to do with it. In Massachusetts, I guess when they found the dam was actually in Massachusetts, said, okay, even though the impoundment itself, which would be the reservoir, is not in Massachusetts, the dam is, so we are going to treat it like it's one of our dams. So we went ahead and had the dam, a phase 1 inspection done, which is the first level of inspections that is done on the dam, and it identified some deficiencies in the dam. There's a spillway structure that's concrete that has some undermining, some cracking that's going to be repaired. There's some growth on the spillway itself on the embankment area. In dams, that is never what you want. You don't want any woody vegetation growth on that because it causes problems with the structure of the dam. So this is to address the issues that have been found in that phase 1 inspection, provide better access to that spillway for cleaning and maintenance, and to fortify that spillway so that it doesn't get undermined. It is the head of our water, our pristine water. The water is very clean and clear up there. It's very well preserved, and it provides our water for that spring water, that summer water that we drink. So it doesn't sound like it's major, but of course, when you deal with something that's the size of a scope of a dam, the costs do go up. But we did get a very competitive price. Northern Tree, if you remember when we did our major dam repair on Dam 5, which is just down from this dam, did an excellent job on that dam. That's a very high hazard dam. It had some of these problems that I just spoke about, where we get undermining from growth and holes in the dam, which, everybody remembers the story of putting your thumb in the dam to plug the dike, but that's what we don't want to have to do. So we're going to do the repairs and keep this up and running, and keep it operational. And by doing this maintenance on it now, we're just providing good protection into the future.
Any other questions? Councilor Marquetti?
I just wanted to know if this has anything to do with the discoloration of the water.
The discoloration of our water has to do with the temperature inversion that happens down in 3 and 4. It's one of the, actually the water that we get out of Hatchet Pond and 5 is the reason we turn over, we switch over to those is because that water quality is a lot better in the summer. 3 and 4 reservoirs are very shallow and they are also very high in organic matter because when they were constructed right on top of old farmers' fields, and that lovely layer of farmer field was never removed. Nowadays, we would have wanted to remove that lovely topsoil before we dammed over it. So what happens is as the water warms up, your organic level increases. It actually becomes more soluble, and that gets into our water and the incoming source. It's all dissolved. We can't see it. It's not something you can see, but when it gets hit by chlorine after the fact, when we do our disinfection, that's when you start to get your taste and odor color issues. As you know, we've been working on that, and it happens, within a month to 2 months in the year. We don't have enough supply just to run on 5 and Hatchet all year long. People might ask you, why can't you just run on the other reservoirs? So we try to make sure that we can switch over, use 3 and 4 for the time being. And when we start to see those issues is when we do that switch over. And we have been doing testing, pilot testing up at the plant to try to address the color issues. So it's kind of the pre-step to being able to do anything new in a treatment train, which will take a couple of years to develop, but we had some promising results. The tricky part to that is you only have a very short window to run your test because we can only really run the test when we're seeing the organic levels and the color at measurable levels. Most of the time in our system, which is why most of the time our water is such good quality, we don't have that issue. So you have to run it on the water that has the organics in it to be able to see if it's actually working.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any other questions, comments? So none, roll call.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
and Counselor Jovan.
Yes. Motion carries. Item 15, vote to approve negative change order number 5 in the amount of $300 from Levangie Electric for electrical upgrade project at the wastewater treatment plant for a revised contract amount of $497,014.49. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Is there a second? Discussion? Council Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, this was voted 3-0 to send to the town council for further action at the November 23rd meeting. Thank you.
Any questions, comments? Seeing none, roll call.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
and Counselor Marquetti.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 16, discussion of 3 state 911 grant applications relating to dispatch operations training to be submitted by the Chief of Police, Southbridge Police Department. No attachments, see below. So I'm going to do my best to help the chief out this evening. Like I said, he contacted me earlier today with apologies again. It's not like the chief, if he could have been up to attending this meeting remotely, he certainly would have. These are the state 911 grants. We sign these every year. There is no money to the out by the town. This is all money that comes out of your phone bills that's attached to surcharges for 911. The 3 grants that he has here tonight for signing are relative to training, support, and incentive and emergency medical dispatch. So the training grant application is what the town manager had, I mean, not the town manager, the police chief has outlined is for in-service training. Every dispatcher has to attend at least 16 hours of in-service, just like police and firefighters have to do in-service training. Dispatchers have to do in-service training, and they have 16 hours per year that they do that. Also, in that grant application, there's several, as we're all aware that there's been quite a turnover in dispatchers. They come, they go. So there's monies in there for the training of dispatchers. To become a dispatcher is quite time consuming. I did some research on this and I'm familiar with it as well. To be hired as a dispatcher, you need a 40-hour basic public safety telecommunications course, a 24-hour emergency medical dispatching course, and then next generation, which I looked up next generation, which it's called next gen. If you look in that graph of hours in the next gen, that is, it's called next generation 911. Before, all 911 calls would be associated with your landline. So that if you called 911, it would just come up and say, so-and-so at Highland Street, number Highland Street is calling. Well, now with the advent of cell phones and cellular data, that's all done by GIS tracking and mapping. So that's all the training to be able to do the tracking to pinpoint individuals. I'm sure you've seen in the media where somebody will call 911 via cell phone and they're able to pinpoint their location and go out to them. So that is the training grant application for the training of dispatchers that he currently has per diem, as well as full-time dispatchers, either new or existing dispatchers. So that's the training one. The support and incentive grant application is again for personnel, and that's relative to enhanced 911 services. And that's all personnel costs. Again, no cost to the town, it's all grant. And then the EMD grant, emergency medical dispatch grant application is that quality assurance. And I looked this up under the Mass regulations, Code of Regulations 560 Mass Regulation 5.06, quality assurance of emergency medical dispatch services. Every primary PSAP, which is a public safety answering point, which we are a public safety answering point, they have to have certified emergency medical dispatch resource, a continuous quality assurance improvement and management program that shall include documentation of quality assurance case review utilized to identify compliance with the emergency medical dispatch, as well as a review of all cases. So that is to have personnel review those cases and 911 calls that they do outside the scope of their regular hours. And I don't know if the town manager has anything else to add on that. Town manager?
Not at this time, Mr. Chairman. I had very little discussion with the chief, other than one of the requirements was that we have to sign prior to the submission, and that was when my involvement first came about, was asking me to sign up front. So that's why we came forward to the council to get the approval to sign.
And again, this was reviewed with Council Lazo as chairman of the Protection of Persons and Property. He wanted to see this go directly up to the council. So are there any other questions? If not, I'll go to the motions themselves. Okay. Item 17, vote to authorize the chief of police and town manager to sign and submit the grant application with attached contract for the State Department 911 FY 2021 training grant and to receive a said grant. Is there a motion?
Second.
Sorry, Mike. All right, sorry about that. My computer kind of froze up. So I got Councilor Steves and Councilor Adams. Any discussion on that? Okay, it kind of froze up, but seeing none, roll call.
That's all right.
Okay, Councilor Marquetti, go ahead. Sorry,
Oh, that's all right. That's
my
just what I
computer
meant.
froze up, so I apologize.
No, that's
Go
fine.
ahead.
I don't, I'm fine with getting grants. I think grants are an excellent way to go. I just want to be clear that if we're not going to be doing this without the grant, correct? I mean, if we don't get the grant, then what? I hope we get the grant.
If, well, the grants are regular grants because they come through the surcharge of the 911 and the
Okay.
train grant. You still have to train dispatchers. So irregardless, if you don't have the grant, it's going to come out of the regular budget because you're going to have to train it because it's mandatory training.
Okay.
So there's no way around the training of the individuals. Council Steve, did you have anything?
No.
Okay. Any other questions? Roll call.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
and Counselor Ryan.
Item 18, vote to authorize the chief of police and town manager to sign and submit the grant application with attached contract for the State Department 911 FY fiscal year 2021 support and incentive grant to accept any award received for said grant. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? Again, one thing I forgot to mention was these grants typically come out in July, the chief said. Usually they're earlier in the fiscal year, but because of the COVID-19 situation, the Commonwealth was late getting these grants out, and all this money will be expended by June 30th, just for anybody's questions. Okay. Anything else? Roll call?
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
and Counselor Steves.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 19, vote to authorize the chief of police and town manager to sign and submit the grant application with attached contract for the State Department 911 Emergency Medical Dispatch Grant to accept any award received for said grant. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any discussion? Seeing none, roll call?
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan.
Yeah.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
and Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Motion carries. Item 20, vote to adopt Mass General Law, Chapter 64N, Section 3, local option tax marijuana. Is there a motion?
So moved.
Second.
Second.
We have a motion by Councilor Adams, seconded by Councilor Catrona. I'll go to the town manager on this one. Mr. Town Manager?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. While working on the pavement management presentation, as well as looking at the segment of the presentation that dealt with financing, I had met with all of the host agreement members of the retail establishments, and I got some preliminary numbers for them. And as I was trying to determine how the money would be coming in from the state, I started reading up a little bit more and more. And there is a certain funding from the DOR. However, I realized at that time that you have to adopt the local option tax, much like we have adopted the local option tax for meals and hotels. And when I looked into it, and I spoke to one of my contacts at the DOR, they had informed me that Southbridge had not adopted that. Many communities and towns that had voted initially after question 4 to allow marijuana in the communities, when they first started doing their host community agreements, they adopted this provision concurrent with their efforts to enter into the host community agreements. For whatever reason, we did not. So I looked at all of the host agreements that I have. I don't have the executed copies, but I do have the drafts, and all of them acknowledge that they would be paying the local option tax. So I don't think there's any impact, and it also notes the 3%. But what we need to do is we have to have a formal vote of the council, and I had indicated by way of a sample what we need to vote on here this evening. And then that needs to be sent to the DOR so that they can log it. What will happen next is this will not take place or not become effective for 30 days. And then after that 30 days, it becomes effective, or they start collecting on the first day of the next full quarter. Because we are in mid-December, 30 days brings us into January, and that third quarter of fiscal 21 has already started. So we couldn't start collecting until April 1st of 2021. At the moment, we're not generating any revenue because no one has opened their doors. However, Green Meadows is fairly confident that they will be opening in the first quarter of 2021. So it is important that we take this vote now so that we don't miss any more potential revenue that would be coming into the community. If for some strange reason we hadn't adopted this or we didn't catch this, we could have gone forward and potentially lost considerable amount of money. So I would encourage the council to adopt this evening, to accept the provisions of Mass General Law 64N Section 3, and that we adopt a rate of 3% for the local option tax for marijuana.
Okay, discussion? Council Marquetti?
But I think Counselor Adams was before me, so.
Unfortunately, he's frozen on my screen, so
Okay.
I didn't see him. So
The
Go ahead,
only thing I
Counsel.
wanna, the only thing I wanna say is good catch.
Yeah,
Thank you.
definitely.
Council Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just quick, so basically to the town manager, DOR would hold up that 3%, even though the retail or the company would have sent it to the state, the DOR would have held up those funds without this approval, correct?
Well, I don't know if they'd be sending them or not. I think it works the other way around, that the DOR would be collecting that from them. They have to provide some financials to the DOR. And I think the Cannabis Control. I'm not exactly sure the mechanism, but I know without us providing notification to the DOR that we have adopted this, they will not take 3% from those retail establishments and earmark it for us.
Okay. So I'll carry on what Councilor Marquetti said. Thank you. I think when I found out about this, my jaw dropped. This was never caught. So thank you for finding that and doing your job. Thank you.
Thank you. Council Steves, did you have anything? Again, my computer's frozen, so I get a couple of people
Very,
frozen.
very quickly. First off, again, I'll say, dovetail this. Thank you very much. I've covered a couple of town meetings where, in other towns where they've approved these kinds of agreements and so forth, as you know, as you mentioned. And honestly, the towns that I've seen, I have never seen any reference to Chapter 64 in anywhere. So you're catching it as very important that other towns may not even be aware that this exists. I'm sure many do, but I'm glad you caught it. Thank you.
And I won't say that I reinvented the wheel. Once I realized that we had to adopt it, I went and looked at several other communities that had already done it, and they used this language. And actually, I want to thank, every time something like this comes up, I work closely with Karen Harnoy, our finance director, as well as Melissa Zawadski, our treasurer collector. And Melissa searched through some of the bulletins that she gets from the DOR and found instructions on how a community should implement the vote. She had forwarded to me, and I did compare it to what some other communities had already done. So that insert you have in your packet is a combination of what we took out of the DOR instructional bullet or information bulletin, as well as what we looked at a couple of communities did. So they deserve, some credit, for helping me put this on the agenda.
Thank you. Any other councilors? Anybody else? So you did mention, Mr. Town Manager, 3%. Do we have to reference 3% in this motion, or is it?
Yes, I would say yes, we have to, because they need to know the amount that they're collecting.
So we have to amend this to vote to adopt at the end of local option tax marijuana in the amount of 3%?
Well, if you see at the very bottom of the item number 20, I noted that it says that the town of Southbridge, acting through its town council, hereby accepts the provisions of section 3, Mass General Law, Chapter 64N, as amended, to impose the excise on retail marijuana for adult use at the rate of 3%. That I put that in the packet along with a copy of the statute.
No, I understand. We don't have that in the motion itself, so I just want to know, does it
Oh,
go
I'm
into the
sorry.
motion?
I just, because we are short-staffed in my office, I provided that to Ms. Ryan, who's helping out with the agenda. And I neglected to put the 3%. So yes, I would ask respectfully that be amended to include the amount of retail tax that we collect. Let me just get the wording I have it here.
So an excise on retail sales of marijuana for adult use at the rate of 3%.
Correct.
Okay.
I'll make that motion.
Get that motion? Is there a second?
Second.
Yeah, I'll second that.
Okay, we have a motion and a second on the amendment. Any questions on the amendment?
I just,
Councilor Adams?
thank you, Mr. Chair. I just want to make sure we're reading off the same thing. It's that last paragraph that you put in there, right, Councilor McCall?
Yes,
Town
on
Manager McCall?
on the document in your packet. Yes, that last
Thank you.
paragraph.
Because I have 3% added in there. So, okay, good to go. Thank you.
Okay.
That's all I have.
Which is not on the motion itself. So, all right,
Got it.
roll call on those on the amendment.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
yes,
Counselor Ryan,
yes,
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
and Counselor Catrona.
Yes.
Motion carries. Again, thank you, Mr. Manager, for checking that and working with your staff to get that fixed. Item 21, vote to approve the appointment of Copeland and Page as special counsel for a cable contract.
We just voted on the amendment. We haven't voted the final motion, sir.
Oh, I thought I said as amended. No?
No, that was the amendment. We haven't voted on the amended motion. We just voted on the amendment.
I thought I did. We voted on the amendment and then didn't I say as amended?
We haven't voted as amended, no.
Okay. Any further discussion on those as amended? Okay. Mary, you want to run the roll again?
Yep, Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
yes,
Counselor Ryan,
yes,
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
Counselor Adams,
Yes.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
and Counselor Daniel.
Yes.
Motion carries. Vote to approve the appointment of Copeland and Page as special counsel for the cable contract. Is there a motion?
So move.
Is there a
Second.
second? Motion and a second. Mr. Town Manager?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. When I came here, I quickly found out that we have a variety of different attorneys for a variety of different special services. And as you know, there are quite a few contracts that were up for renewal. I started working with the counsel that we had in place. That's Attorney August of Epstein and August, a firm that I know specializes in negotiating cable contracts. Cable contracts come up every 10 years. My understanding, speaking with Attorney August, that the new charter cable contract is different than it has been in past years, and there's requirements that must be followed pursuant to FCC rules about negotiating this, holding public hearings. We started working on the preliminary stages of what we need to do to gather our ascertainment of needs, and I was contacted by our current attorney to say that something had come up and that he had had a conflict and did not think that he could go forward and effectively represent the town during portions of this. So at that point, he was looking for someone to help represent us. I did reach out to one of the partners at Copeland and Page, who I've worked with in the past, and they had sent the letter that's in the packet from their attorney, Attorney Hewig, who I did wind up having a telephone conversation with. And based on the fact that our current council felt that they couldn't go forward to represent us, I had contacted Councilor Jovan to find out what we would need to do to have new council put in place. So based on my conversations with the respective attorneys, I was asking this evening to utilize the services of Copeland and Page to continue with the process of negotiating with Charter Communications. I will say, and I'm sure I'll get a couple of questions about the cover letter that was sent in. When I read that cover letter, I think it's probably a fairly standard cover letter with regard to how things are, how one provides representation. But I had already talked to both attorneys, our existing counsel, and the attorney going forward, that the town would not be taking a passive role in the negotiations, that my intent would be that I would be working either side by side or taking an active role in the negotiation and only deferring to council as needed for their expertise in those areas. I anticipate, I know there's a couple of councilors that usually ask me about that. So I wanted to get that out there, that would be how I envision going forward. I sat in as an elected official on a cable contract about 10 years ago with Comcast in one of my own communities, but I have not led the negotiations from this particular vantage point. But I think working side by side with council, if I have someone to work back and forth on some of the issues, we should be able to work through this together. And that was what my plan was with our existing council. It's just, as I indicated, he had indicated that he could not go forward. Interestingly enough, after I received this letter and spoke with Attorney Hewitt, our existing council called back and thought that they may be able to go forward. I'm unclear as to whether that's appropriate given the concerns he had. So I'm going to stick with my request to go Copeland and Page at this time.
Any questions, comments? Councilor Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. As with the previous agenda on Ty and Bond, I'm not interested in using Copeland and Page on anything. We had Copeland and Page. They were the law firm that represented the town of Southbridge at the landfill. I was not satisfied with the landfill contract. I thought it was a very lucrative contract for the landfill operator, not for the town. We were promised $109 million in a 20-year contract at the landfill. The landfill was ended 10 years early. I didn't see any penalties in the contract for an early termination at the landfill. There were a lot of other things with that contract that I was not happy with. There was liability issues. There was contaminated soil cover. There was a very low tipping rate. It was too many things in that contract I was not satisfied, still am not satisfied with. And Copeland and Page was the attorneys that negotiated it. And now we want to use them again to negotiate a new contract with someone else. I'm not going to vote for that. I can't use Copeland and Page for anything, to tell you the truth. I didn't see any cost on this. There was something about an attachment C that was going to give us the cost. I saw no cost, but my main problem is just with Copeland and Page. I wasn't happy with the landfill contract. I'm sure I won't be happy with this contract. Don't see any reason to use them. Don't see why we can't use American Common. And that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Mr. Town Manager, do you want to respond to that? We weren't using Miracle Connell on this contract anyway. Mr. August was not part of Miracle Connell. He was a different firm altogether. Councilor Catrona, I guess I'll go first and then go to Town Manager.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you to the Town Manager. I do see that there's a $250 per hour rate, and if they not to exceed $500 in value, does that mean this will come back to council when they every 2 hours for an approval? The contract states, we will notify you in advance before incurring individual costs exceeding $500 in value, unless directed otherwise by the town. And that their blended hourly rate is $2.50 per hour. That's one of my questions.
Okay, I would have to get clarification. Now, that may be costs in terms of there's hourly fees, and sometimes what that implies is if they have a cost, if they have to, a printing cost, or they have to, hire, let's say a stenographer or other quote unquote costs, I can get clarification and send an email to you if that'd be the case. What Councilor Marquetti referred to, there was an attachment, and I guess I thought I sent it to Ms. Ryan. I may have neglected to. They gave several scenarios. There's often multiple phases to the negotiation of the cable contract, as I've come to understand it, and they gave examples of the amount of hours they thought if you just went through one level versus two versus all the way through, and that they had indicated most communities go to what they refer to as a level 3, and that was the same path we had been on with the previous council, where we do the initial meetings with charter, we do our ascertainment of needs, we go through and determine what we need from the contract, and then we would sit down. It's called an informal process. I can get back to the council I can send that document C out and try and get any answers that council needs if they wanted for next Monday. The one thing I just want to mention is this expired the week I arrived here. It's my understanding through existing council that we're operating essentially on a month-to-month, that there should be no disruption pending a successful renegotiation. But the contract already has concluded, and we're just waiting. We're in a holding pattern until we can renegotiate. So if Councilor Marquetti's point, if the council would like to see that other document, I'm happy to get it to you and send it out for next Monday night. And I could also answer any questions from Councilor Catrona at the same time.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. If I can continue, Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead.
It is very, very good to hear you, Mr. Town Manager McCall, taking an active role in this negotiation. That's, in my opinion, it's an attempt to save the taxpayers money in this negotiation. We know now, and we hear from residents year after year, that our cable bills are too high, and I hope that's looked at. The lack of competition, the monopoly that Charter has in this town right now, and I have not yet heard an update on the Charter leaving this town, the office. As we know, citizens are struggling in this town, taxpayers, and the cable bills are just too high, and there is no real alternative. You have Fios going into the DOD, there's fiber, and we can't extend that because of this contract. So I hope that's looked at more closely during this negotiation, and to try and bring more competition into this community, as we seem to have it on both sides of us. But Southbridge hasn't been able to bring that in yet. Do you have, and I know you just spoke to this, an anticipation of the amount of hours that this may take in legal costs?
I believe every situation is unique, mind you. They provided an estimate that was approximately $15,000 if they went through what they estimated the hours necessary to go through those 3 parts of level 3 with a typical community. Again, I don't know if we would be a typical community because I would be working at times with council, participating actively in negotiations. So that may change the costs, lower the cost. And just one note before I forget, I'll have to check to see who I emailed it to, but I know Councilor Steves did ask me about the closing of the local office. I did inquire with our existing council before. He said he could not go forward. He did pose a question. He did give us a response to Councilor Steves. I'm not sure if I emailed it to the entire council, but I will go back in my email and send that out. But he had said that it's very difficult. They've been having the same problem in many other communities where Charter had been closing the office and they were having little success, if any, trying to get him to keep it. And I believe that's the crux of that email that I forwarded to Councilor Steves, but I will send that to the rest of the committee, council. But I would imagine their hourly rate is not that far off. Myrick O'Connell and some of the other firms that we use charge in between $200, $250, sometimes $300 an hour. I've seen bills relative to some of the litigation that we've had recently that as high as $300 for certain attorneys that are involved. So their hourly wage is not unusual. It would really just come down to the number of hours that we spend, but you could, on a matter like this, spend between 10 and 15,000 over the course of 6 months or more. If we have regular meetings or if there's drafting and hearings that go on. And one other comment, if I may, Mr. Chairman, I have been involved in municipal government for over 20 years. I've had the pleasure of serving with numerous different town councils. My prior town, I worked with Copeland Page, Myrick O'Connell, Mead Talman, Costa, some of the ones that we're dealing with now. I've had, good experiences with some of them. I've had bad experiences with some of them. I think that's always going to vary between attorneys. You have firms, they do the best they can, like anybody else, to have competent staff. I can tell you as a trial attorney, you don't always win every trial. Sometimes when you go into litigation, you can be the best prepared in the world and things can go awry. But I've had some good experiences. Most recently, we had changed from Myrick O'Connell in my last community to Copeland Page for Labor Council. We had them previously. We had changed and we realized we wanted to go back to Copeland Page. So I'm sure we could each have an opinion about every one of the different firms that we've utilized, and we'll have good stories and bad, but I've had some good dealings with Copeland Page, and that's why I put them in.
Thank you, Mr. Town Manager. Thank you,
Any other questions?
Mr. Chairman.
You all set, Council? Council Steve?
I was just curious, are you aware of any other firms that also do this kind of work? I know you said you've done business with these people, and I understand that. And just to also pass the record, I just sent out the email that Mr. McCall was just referring to because I found it in my email, so I just sent it out to everybody.
Through you, Mr. Chairman, the Council Steves, really with time being a necessity, I looked quickly to Copeland Page because of my relationship that I had with him in my previous community. I'm sure we could solicit proposals. I have proposals for the next meeting. I've solicited town council services proposals from Myrick O'Connell, Copeland Page, Mead, Talman, and Costa, as well as Attorney Caprera. I think the reason we were with Attorney August is his firm specializes in cable contracts and really don't do much of anything else. Many years ago, we had used his partner in one of the communities I had worked with. So it was really my relationship with Copeland Page that made me pick up the phone with them. I could easily ask Myrick O'Connell and Mead, Talman, and Costa if they want to give us a proposal on cable services as well and see who they have in-house if that's the council's wish.
Where do we stand as far as timeliness, as far as the status of where we are in the middle of dealing with charter right now?
As I indicated, the contract expired.
Yeah.
Simultaneously with my arrival, I had spoken with Attorney August, and he said that, you know, even though it's expired, that's typical with many communities, that we're still in a situation where we're operating under the prior contract with Charter. And he said it's not as if they would turn off the switch. And that's my understanding, but I don't want to leave a huge gap in time before we get back to them. So I would like to go forward as quickly as possible and find someone. I received the notice from the existing council of the potential conflict in the beginning of November, and then I sought some information, and I wound up speaking with the representative from Coltman Page about a week or so later. So just scheduling, this was the first chance I got to put it on. It was, I tried to get it on the last agenda, but we didn't have time. So that's why we got to this stage.
Councilor Marquetti?
I wouldn't mind putting this off just one more week anyways, just to get some other bids. I think that would be appropriate, be prudent anyway. If you want me to make it a motion to postpone it, is that proper? I can do that.
That would be the proper procedure.
I'll make the motion to postpone it till the next meeting.
I'll second for the sake of discussion.
Okay, motion and second. Any discussion on motion to postpone? So what, I guess the question too, what exactly are we asking the town manager to look at, to bring back with us for a motion? Because it would have to be by Wednesday for him to get that information to us to be put on the agenda. So what are we looking at for that?
If I might, he mentioned that he would be happy to get some quotes from Merrick O'Connell, and there was another law firm.
What I can do, if I may, Mr. Chairman, conclusion of this meeting this evening, I will send out an email to the other firms that we deal with, Merrick O'Connell, as well as Mead, Talaman, and Costa. And I can even send one to our existing attorney to get formal proposal of what they will be billing us going forward and whether or not they can do that, so that you would have four letters in front of you, and I'd be happy to answer any questions next week about that. That's assuming they can give me an answer in time for the packet for next week, but I'll send those email requests out this evening so they can start working on them.
Thank you. Any other discussion on the motion to postpone? Okay. Just want to, I have no problem postponing this. I just want to make sure that it's for everybody. We all have, like the town manager said, there's always issues with council and attorneys. I've been doing this for a long time now, both on the school committee now and the town council. And we could have stories back and forth on different legal councils, and as well as my role in other towns as a municipal police chief. Just want to be careful that we shouldn't pin what may have happened on a previous issue to the entire law firm. Especially with the fact that if you had a sitting council at that time, if you're not happy with what the parameters of what they negotiated in any agreement, that's really comes down to the town council, because the town council is the one, as the leaders of our community, we're the ones that sign off on any agreement. So if we're not happy with of what had taken place in a prior agreement of whatever issue it is, the bottom line is we are the town council. Town council's ultimate responsibility for any decision that's made. So if an attorney didn't make the best deal for the town of Southbridge, it's the town council at that time that didn't make the best deal for the town of Southbridge, because anything that's derived comes from the town council. So I just want to make sure that's clear on whatever law firm we want to deal with. Council Steve?
Yeah, I would agree with you, what you just said. And I also wanted to point out that I personally don't have any problem with KP. But I think the idea of getting multiple bids is probably a good idea just for the sake of, just to do it the right way.
No, I have no problem.
Yeah.
Council Dow, do you have something else? Go
Yeah,
ahead.
thank you. For you. I think the whole idea was saying that past council just to learn in the past where was a wrong decision or mistake to fix it and move forward. I don't think we or any of us looking bad. We're gonna thanks everybody, try to do the best for the town. But if we look a little bit in the back history and we see where other did mistake to be able to fix it and move forward, we're not trying to bad out the old council or whatever. Just we're looking where the mistake would happen and we're able to fix it and go forward in a better decision. Thank you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right, Council Dow, because I'm sure that if I look back in the history of my tenure in different roles, there are some votes that I may have taken that I might not have looked good on. So that's a point well taken. Thank you. Any other discussion on a motion to postpone? Councilor Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just don't want to waste the town manager's time because there's a personal issue with this law firm. Again, caveat on what the chair said and Councilor Dow said is holding accountable the entire firm for just a few for some issues that happened in the past that were not voted upon us. Again, the town manager has a lot of work to do, and this is probably not one of them that takes my priority at this point in time. So I'll be voting no on this amendment.
All right, any further discussion on a motion to postpone? Roll call. It's postponed till next week, 12/14.
Counselor Adams,
No.
Counselor Catrona,
No.
Counselor Daniel,
No.
Counselor Dow,
No.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
No.
and Counselor Steves.
Yes.
The motion does not carry. So we'll go back to the main motion and vote to approve the appointment of Copeland Page as special counsel for the cable contract. Is there any other discussion on that? Being none, roll call.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
No.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
and Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Motion carries. Council's forum. Council Dow?
I didn't hear you. Excuse me.
Council's forum, do you have a council forum?
No, just make sure everybody stay safe. Don't get too much coronavirus. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Catrona?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Through you, just a few things. I'd like to thank the town manager for putting together a meeting for all the concerned residents on Dresser Hill Road in reference to the flooding. There is going to be a meeting or a site visit at 1 o'clock Wednesday for all those concerned and those that want to participate. This has to do with the flooding of the solar site up there on both sides of the road. And I thank you for putting that meeting together, Mr. Town Manager. I did see the street sweeper on Main Street. Thank you to the DPW department. That was very nice to see. Main Street being cleaned up before the storm. It adds into the next thing that I want to say to what the chairman stated at the beginning of the meeting. I want to thank Holiday Visions, Denise Clements, her family, the friends, all of her friends, and all those who participated. It's a large undertaking every year from beginning to end, and the end just doesn't mean putting them out. It's picking them up as well and putting them away and organizing, start to get ready for next year. Denise Clemens, and all those who participate, take on a large undertaking. And when you drive up and down Main Street, it looks wonderful. The DPW did a great job livening the tree lights as well on Main Street. And it's just, when you drive up and down, again, it looked great the other night driving down in the snowstorm. So thanks to them, and to everyone who participates. To the town as a whole, we know COVID cases are on the rise. Stay safe, wear your mask, practice social distance. That's all I have tonight. Thank you.
Okay, Council Marquetti?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, through you. I see that Heather is still on here, and I was just wondering if she had a chance to look at Brentwood Drive to see if that was completed. I drove up there the other day, and it looked like there was curbing only on one side and not the other, and it looked like a definite drop off into the woods.
So let me give you an update. Curbing is not required in all locations. It wasn't.
Hold on,
Heather, your mic
your
is
mic is
disrupted.
not this, yeah, you're back to where you were last week.
The garble.
She can just email me if that's better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Cool.
All right, thank
Right.
you. I don't think I have anything else at this time. Thank you.
All right. Council Adams, did you want a question on that?
Oh, I just wanted to, what Councilor Marquez said, if you can email all of us, because I think we all had
Yeah.
questions about that place. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. All right, Council Marquetti, did you have anything else? I'm sorry. Were you also?
I just want to say something about the Kopelman and Page. It's nothing personal. That affected us all. That affected the whole town. So I just want to make it clear, it's nothing personal on my part. I just
Okay.
wanted to use someone else, that's all. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you, Council. Council Ryan,
Nothing this evening, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
thank you, Council. Council Steves,
I don't have anything tonight either.
thank you. Council Adams?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wanted to, what town manager said earlier about that job fair on the 11th. On the 11th. Internet may pause, but I believe Santa is supposed to be there, as well as they're collecting blankets and donations for families as well, perishable items or non-perishable items to the family. So I may have missed that, Mr. Town Manager, but I just want to add that in there. Also, I know we gave a long brief on the COVID. I will say this it seems like it's constantly moving and moving and moving. So 5 minutes later, after you make a decision on what has to happen, something else comes up. So I hope, and I appreciate all the town councilors who are sharing that information to the residents as we're going along. So that makes a lot of people's job a lot easier as you provide that information coming from Andy or whoever else it is. So, and I did want to say thank you to Jasmine as well for constant translation for us. She's been great to deal with, and she's really helped the community out quite a bit. And lastly, I wanted to mention today is the 79th anniversary of the attack on Pearl Harbor. Over 2,400 servicemen and also civilians perished in that attack. If people don't know, Leonid J. Lemire was one of those individuals from the town of Southbridge that died on the USS West Virginia. And according to his friend who was with him,
How'd you come up with all these?
Go ahead, sorry.
no worries. According to his friend, he probably perished going to church, catching the boat, which was common practice back then to go to mainland on Oahu and catch church services there. He's probably waiting in line when the Japanese attacked. I believe there's only less than a handful of survivors left. I think they did a story on a 101-year-old serviceman who was a survivor of the attack. So if you saw the flags at half staff, half mast today, that was because of the 79th anniversary, and which fortunately and unfortunately kicked off the greatest generation. So thank you very much for all those individuals that are, and families that unfortunately had to sacrifice this day 79 years ago. That's all I have.
Thank you, Council. Council Daniel.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, through you. I'd like to offer my personal congratulations to Jim Dyer on his appointment to the Education and Human Services Subcommittee. the man really cares for his community. And when you look at his resume, you see that he's involved in an awful lot of projects in an awful lot of areas. And I think he's going to be a wonderful appointment to EHS, and I'm very pleased that he's on board with us. So again, thanks, Jim. I appreciate what you're doing for us. I'd like to thank the town DPW for the response to the second storm of the season. My street was plowed and sanded, plowed and salted frequently. And by the end of the storm, the roads looked real good. I took a drive through town, and it was really wonderful. Nice response by the DPW. So thank you, Heather, and your folks are doing a great job. And also, I'd just like to say I'm very grateful for the safe return to headquarters of our members of the Southbridge Fire Department. They had another call, and it's nice to see that people are coming back safe and sound. And I think that's because of the high quality of training that our fire department officers give to their men. And I'm grateful for that. So thank you very much. That's all I have. Next meeting is scheduled for next Monday, December 14th at 7 p.m. Remotely.
Thank you. Motion to adjourn.
So move.
So moved.
We have a motion and a second. Roll call.
Counselor Catrona,
Yes.
Counselor Daniel,
Yes.
Counselor Dow,
Yes.
Counselor Jovan,
Yes.
Counselor Marquetti,
Yes.
Counselor Ryan,
Yes.
Counselor Steves,
Yes.
and Counselor Adams.
Yes.
Thank you all. Have a good night.
Thank
Right
you.
on.
Thank you. Have a
Good night.
good night.
This conference